we rev the engines for yet another Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us for another episode. And also joining me, I don't have my co-pilot here, Gabe, with me today, but we do have from live, of course, from our Perth studios, of course, the wonderful Michael Peach. Thanks for joining us, mate.
We're actually a little bit delayed here. It's about 3 hours behind, actually. So,
so it's bright and early for you.
It is. And yes, behind in a lot of ways, sometimes Perth, but yeah, no, I am live here on the call.
Well, the reason you are 3 hours is because you're behind in daylight saving, right? Because you don't do that sort of thing over there.
No, not at all.
All right, well, I'll kick off and then Peach is going to take us under the hood of HubSpot so we can have a little poke around and see what's going on, of course, over there. But let's have a look at just a couple of things just to kind of set the scene. Of course, this is the awesome foursome, the guys that normally are on here, besides myself and Peachy. There's often Gabe McCarthy, who's away unwell today, and Matty Reid sometimes joins us also from the wonderful Perth office, Western Australia. So we're going to be having a chat about a couple of things today. Firstly, custom objects, an exciting little thing that HubSpot has, or a feature that it has within all of its enterprise platforms. So the first thing to note is it is enterprise. It's an enterprise feature. So if you're not an enterprise, then you might need to look at upgrading. But certainly enterprise, any of the hubs, the marketing hub, the sales hub, service hub, operations hub, CMS hub, any of those will qualify for you to access custom objects across the rest of the platforms. So when do we use custom objects, or how can we use custom objects? Well, there's three different ways that you can probably think about using it. Firstly, when you're looking to segment non-standard data based on your business requirements, for example, you might have specific data that you want to capture within the CRM, like shipments, events, subscriptions, company locations, etc., even types of products. So this is where custom objects can help you create that specific data point within your CRM. If you've ever asked your customers a variety of questions, we often do. We're often surveying our questions or asking them to qualify for things. Then obviously custom objects will allow you to probably gather and, importantly, map those answers accordingly. And then finally, an entity relationship diagram. Now, that doesn't mean a lot to me. It probably does to Peach, so he could probably explain it a bit more. Or ERD sounds a lot simpler, which is a diagram that basically shows the relationships of entity sets stored within your database. Again, custom objects can play an important pivotal role in helping you capture some of that important data. So the custom objects function is defined and records and basically sets up anything to do with things like contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. It allows you to do a lot more than just obviously capture the data. It also allows you to trigger off workflows based on those custom object values. So based on what they're reporting on and what's coming in, you can trigger off fantastic workflows that actually help automate your business. You can create lists based on those values, personalized sales and marketing emails even off your custom object, and then run reports, of course, to recognize trends among your database by all of that exclusive, specific to your business data point coming in through the custom objects that you've actually set up. Some of the new features got released 2023, released at Inbound just recently for 2022, is the new custom object builder, which brings you a simple and intuitive way, if you like, to actually build your custom objects. No code required, which is one of the great things that HubSpot does, is allows you to do things within the platform without actually knowing anything about coding, which is great for people like me. It also allows admins to define the name, plural name, first property of a custom object, and really, really works well. So Peach might Peach might teach us a little bit more about this new feature that's only been released as of this year, which is Custom Object Builder. The other thing we're going to touch upon is this thing here. It's called a sandbox, right? But obviously it's a different type of sandbox within the HubSpot platform. So sandboxes are a great way for you to kind of test and measure some of the things you might be working on. When would you use a particular sandbox? Well, whether you're building a custom sales pipeline, for example, you really can't afford to bring those elements to life straight away without ruining your customer experience. So you want to test them first, see what impact they have before you go live. That's where a sandbox comes in. A sandbox can also be used to easily run experiments and fully understand how individual components of your customer experience come together. And then finally, understand how data between both platforms, when you're doing an integration, you can see how both systems kind of interact with each other, configure your settings, access the tools, etc., to ensure that the integration meets the needs before you actually take it live. So Sandbox can be very, very useful when you're trying something new to test it out in an environment that doesn't actually affect your live platform. So we'll touch on a little bit of Sandboxes as well, because it is about developing that delightful digital experience. Because another great thing with the Sandbox is we're all trying to create these things called sophisticated websites. So a lot more than the standard HTML or CSS websites that we have done in the past. It's all about completing a full end-to-end digital experience. So again, the Sandbox comes into play where you can actually test out specific modules and templates and entire themes of a new website process that you might be developing before you actually take it live and deliver that delightful digital experience for your customers. So an action-packed week, if you like, of what we're doing this week. So I'm so grateful to have the wonderful Michael Peach to dive deep into HubSpot and tell us more about custom objects and a little bit of a sandbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, Tony. You saw everything I was going to talk about, so I'm done. I'm done. No, but no, yeah, thanks for that great intro. Really covered off some of the key points. I'm going to start off today by sort of walking you through in a bit of detail, a bit more about custom objects, some use cases, and generally how we've used them for some of our clients, but also I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser of like that custom object builder. So we're actually going to jump into a portal, live create a custom object, and show you just how easy that is going to be. Because a lot of the time in the past, I think what stopped people from using custom objects or even thinking about them, they get very confused, I think, because it is, this idea of like, oh, it's a new object. What is an object? How do I create these? And in the past, it was something that you probably needed someone with API experience to build for you and add into your portal. So a developer generally, but now HubSpot's come along and added this, user interface that means we can create it directly from HubSpot, which is a real game changer for those marketers that are really looking to capture more data, and they have a really good understanding of a CRM, but they don't really know the development tools and how to sort of use those. So this is going to be really helpful for you. I'm pretty much just going to jump into the portal right now. We're going to talk through that. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about Sandbox and how that sort of interacts with both custom objects, but also how you can use Sandbox for a lot of different things. So let's go. So we should be sharing my screen right now, I believe. And we're in a test portal here again, as per usual. So isn't going to be a lot of data here that we're going to be seeing, but we're going to be taking you through sort of the functionality of things. So first things first, custom objects and finding them. Generally, we're going to go to settings to sort of set up our CRM. This is where we go to sort of manage and build a lot of things. And one thing you're going to see right here is that we have here at Saltstone access to the beta for the data model overview. And this is the custom object builder that Tony was talking about. So I think at this point, before I actually click into this and sort of jump into building a custom object, maybe it's worth just quickly covering and just reiterating exactly what custom objects are. In essence, the idea of HubSpot and CRMs, other CRMs in general as well, is that they're built to manage those relationships that a company may have. So those relationships include relationship with contacts, with companies, particular sales deals potentially, or service tickets that we have with consumers. Those are the relationships, they're the communications, they're the touch points that we may have with consumers or businesses that we work with. They could also, however, expand to include other types of relationships. And right now, HubSpot only has their 4 standard objects that we primarily utilize: contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. So what happens if we have a relationship that doesn't fall into one of those 4 categories? Well, in the past, it was something that we weren't really able to service within HubSpot, and you'd have to probably manage that separately. But with custom objects, we can manage that all internally within HubSpot and capture data on those and sort of also look at the interactions between those custom objects and the 4 standard objects that HubSpot has. So the use cases here can be things like, for example, say you have partnerships with other agencies or other businesses. You could potentially put that in and have partnerships within as a custom object. You could have something as simple as if you were, for example, like we here at Salted Stone, you have, say, a recurring business or billing systems, and you may have milestones that sit within that. And you can have businesses reach certain milestones, and that can trigger new billing actions, for example, and those milestones can be created as a custom object. You could have payments and invoices as custom objects. You could have contracts as custom objects. For subscription or SaaS-based businesses, subscriptions and memberships are often a common custom objects that are built for them. And then another one we're doing for another client is things like referrals. So a referral program with a list of referrals and the number of referrals someone's managed. And then we can sort of associate that referrals object to all of the different people or in the CRM, or the contacts in the CRM that came from that referral code or that person has. So there's a lot of different potential use cases, but in essence, HubSpot has given us the ability to create objects to store that data on. So in HubSpot right now, we have our custom or our standard objects. We got contacts, deals, and companies, and we can create custom properties. And in essence, what we're going to be doing is creating a new object that sits alongside contacts and deals that enables us to create the data. So we're going to click into data model overview. Like I said, this isn't currently in beta, but I think the expectation is this will be launching to the public and everybody in early 2023. But this is the new sort of section of HubSpot that lets us do a couple of things. One thing I love is this. Tony said like ERD, which is like an enterprise diagram. This is a very simple version in HubSpot of like some sort of like a diagram that shows you the connection between all of your different objects. So what you can see here is we can see we've got companies, contacts, deals, and tickets. And just earlier today, I created milestones as a new custom object. And I'm going to show you firstly how we can associate that to other objects in here. But I'm also going to show you how to create another custom object as well. So this diagram can really help you, especially as you start to expand out and build more custom objects, can show you the interrelationships between the different objects. So you can then tick off certain ones and you can see which ones are associated with each other and see how these all interact with each other really nicely. So last thing is we're going to click create a custom object. I'm going to show you how to use this builder. And it's so simple and so easy. I think even Tony could do it. So all I do is I click the create custom object button that we saw there in the data model overview, and I get to choose the name of my custom object. In this scenario, I'm going to call this account. So for example, if we have, say, a sort of telephone business or an internet provider, they may have like accounts that people set up, or any sort of subscription-based software SaaS business could also have accounts. So we're going to create this new custom object called accounts that we can store our data on. For the display property, this is the primary sort of name, in essence, of what the accounts, when we see them, what will we want to have it. So in this scenario, I'm actually going to call this account ID, because we want to, for example, have an ID number that's associated with an account. And what we can actually do here is click the require unique values for this property. So what that means is, as we create new accounts, we can have unique IDs created. And if the same ID is entered, it'll throw us an error and we'll be like, hey, someone already has that ID, so we can't create another one. It also means that we can, in essence, deduplicate data based on that ID. So we can send data into the system from another system, or when we're submitting forms, for example, if that account ID is entered, it will update the existing object record with that account ID as opposed to creating a new one. So can be really valuable to ensure that you only have like one value for each. And then we can start to set secondary properties. So we could, for in this example, say, account type, and then we could have this be like a single line text field. We could then add some additional ones, for example, account, terms, and like so. And then we can click create. So we've gone ahead and we've now got our accounts custom object. And as we see here, we can now see we've got the two custom objects I've built. So if I jump back into objects down here under data management, you'll see now we've got contacts, companies, deals, tickets, but down the bottom we have custom objects. And that's where we store and manage our custom objects. So in this case, we've got accounts and milestones. So we've just created our account custom object, and now we want to potentially associate this. So associations in HubSpot relate to how data can and different objects can be associated with each other. So a very easy way to explain this is just to go over here, go to an example contacts like Mr. Tony Eads here, and look over here on this right-hand side. And this is what we call the associations window of our CRM, right? So this is where we can see associated deals to the contact or associated tickets to the contact. In order for us to have our new custom objects appear here and enable us to associate them with contacts, I need to set that up. So I need to come over here, go to my custom object of accounts, go to associations, and select create new association. And then I can come in here and say, I want to associate this custom object to contacts. And now I have the account to contacts association. So I can now jump back in to my contact record. And if this works, we'll see on the right-hand side, I now have the accounts tab down the bottom here. And I can now start to associate accounts with my contacts. So the ability here is that we can start to then manage those relationships. The accounts, for example, could have a relationship with contacts and deals, or it could have associations with contacts and tickets, or it could have associations with contacts and companies, or all of those combined. And that's where, again, we can come back to our data model overview and we can start to see, okay, well, what are those relationships we've currently got set up? So we can see accounts right now, they're only connected over here to contacts. So if we get rid of companies, you can see they're connected to contacts. And that's about it. So that is a really quick sort of overview of how custom objects work. And obviously, when you jump into those custom objects and look at them, you can also manage the properties that are associated with them. So you can navigate to your properties section. You can just scroll down here and you can find your milestone properties, for example. And you can actually start to come in here and actually create new milestone properties or new account properties under the account contact object. So you can start to create all those custom properties that you want to store data on. So you might say account value and sort of add that in. And then we can have this be a number field in a sort of currency value and then sort of create that like so. And now there we go. We've got our account value field that's a currency and it's going to be able to enable us to put in the value of that account, whatever that might be. So the object, once created, works just like any other object in HubSpot. So contacts, companies, deals, you can come in, you can create new properties and do all that sort of stuff. One of my favorite things, though, is what you can do with those custom objects when you're actually managing them. So we've got contacts up here. We then have our custom objects tab that's now appeared, and we can see our custom objects that sit in here. So I'm quickly going to go into accounts and show you my favorite feature that comes standard with all custom objects is this section. So you can see out here, I'm on the list view up the top here, and that's just as if you normally would go into your contacts view and you've got your standard sort of list view, just like this. But what you can see here is we also get the ability to have a board view. And what that means is we can actually create pipelines just like you can for deals or tickets within a custom object. So I can come in here, I can click create pipeline, and I can now have my accounts pipeline set up, and I can call this sort of account onboarding, for example. And I can now, oh, it'd be good if I could spell. But in essence, we can come in here and have our account onboarding pipeline, and we can say, start to put together different stages of our account pipeline. So we can say, the onboarding stage is like, welcome email that gets sent. We might have a number of other sort of actions that are taken as part of like welcome to, thanks for signing up sort of thing and becoming an account, opening an account with us. This could be, 1 month in, and then you can have like 3 months and then 6 months. And then you can have sort of like what we call sort of like ongoing sort of thing. And then you have this ability to, just like you have in sort of your different deal pipelines, you can have like open and closed, whether that is open or closed. And then we can also save. And now what we've got is we've got a pipeline. If we go back here and refresh, we've now got our pipeline. So we can then start to sort of create an account object record and move it along the pipeline and have then trigger off different actions based on the pipeline stage that the object is at. So at the welcome email stage, we can have a workflow that triggers a welcome email. At 1 month, we have sort of a check-in requirement with the customer success manager that calls up the client and asks if they're, how's their account going so far? Has everything been okay in the first month? Do they have any issues? At 3 months, we have another check-in date potentially. At 6 months, there's like a, hey, hope you're really enjoying it. Could you put in a referral or a review for us? These different things you can have at different stages of your account lifecycle built into this sort of pipeline stage. And these pipelines can be built for anything. So any of your custom objects. So it becomes really good to actually enable you to have those different pipelines. So you can start to sort of really manage your custom objects in a really new or exciting way. Additionally, you can have multiple pipelines for your custom objects. So this is the onboarding pipeline. You might have like a renewals pipeline, for example. So when someone's renewal date gets up, you add them to renewals pipeline and they get sort of flown through that. So you can sort of manage that renewals process. So there's so much that you can do with custom objects, and a really, really nice, intuitive and easy to manage system for capturing that data effectively, and then using it across reports and using it within your sort of general processes to make sure that you're capturing the right data, you're making that customer experience really, really clean and effective. But more importantly as well, it gives you the oversight into that information. You can associate that with other contacts. You can create lists based off of consumers that have an account that's, you know, at the renewal stage, or have an account that's at that 6-month stage, or have a new account. All these sorts of things you can sort of trigger and have lists based off of, based on your custom objects. So it's a really, really powerful tool that enables you to level up your CRM sort of strategy and your data strategy, and really gives you the insight that you need to make sure that all elements of the business are all working together. It's not just focused now on marketing and sales and service. It's got all of these other elements. You can have your billings and your invoices teams working in HubSpot to see invoices and where they're at and have they been paid. Set up an integration with Xero so that data flows in. You know, all these different things can all come into HubSpot, and you can run reports on them. So instead of your, you know, CEO having to go to Xero and run reports on things, or go to Stripe and see how many sales, or, you know, all this sort of stuff, you can set up a custom object, integrate that system so the data comes through, and then they can run all their reports they need in HubSpot. So they can see sales, marketing, service, and accounts payables all within one system. So it becomes really, really powerful for us to make sure that, yes, we're using the system that we're paying for effectively, and getting the most buy-in as well from all the different team members, making it really effective. I personally think custom objects are the most fun thing you can use, but I'm a data nerd. So if I've bored you at all, I apologize. But I do want to touch on the sandbox side of things. And I think that it ties in really nicely to custom objects, because really, when you're looking at building custom objects, you don't really want to just jump straight into your production portal where your teams are working already, where you're doing things day to day, especially if teams are in there and then they're like, hang on, what's this new accounts thing I see on the right-hand side of my contact record? What's that all about? And then they start putting things in or playing around with it. No go. We don't want people playing with things when we're building them. We don't want things affecting and just by accident any production stuff we have in. We don't want things to trigger off to consumers that we didn't want. So that's where a sandbox can come in and be really effective. Again, sandboxes, I think, are mostly limited, I think, just to enterprise level accounts. So it really is something that you need to have that sort of high level subscription for. But I'll just show you how easy they are to sort of set up and use. So firstly, under account setup, you'll notice there's the sandboxes section over here. And all I need to do is click build sandbox. I get to name it. So I'm going to call this one Peach is cool. And then create. And then what I get to do is I get to choose what I want to sync. So in essence, what sandboxes enable you to do, which is the most powerful thing, is create a one-to-one copy of your existing setup in your production account in another account that you can play with. Historically in the past, and a lot of teams may still be doing this, they would have created what we call like a development account, or in essence, another account that sits separate to your main account that you have as like a bit of a playground. It's HubSpot generally would enable you to give you another account for free that was the same setup as your production account to enable you to test integrations with. It wouldn't have any of the ability to send marketing emails and things like that. You couldn't use it for marketing, but you could use it for your development team to test in. The only trouble with that is every time that when you wanted to set that up, firstly, you'd have to either completely rebuild your whole production portal in development. So it was a one-to-one match, which if you've been using your production portal for 2 or 3 years, there's 1,000 properties, 50 workflows, 110 lists. You've got so much data and information and things that you've built, an architecture that's just developed over that time. It's almost impossible, or would take hundreds of hours to rebuild that in a development account. So there was always that risk that although you would be building in a development account and think it's all working, when you go and deploy into production, there's an element of something that was built in production that you wasn't in your development account that interacts in a weird way with something that you were building as a net new asset or new integration. And then that causes problems, and you have to quickly pull a deployment and go in and try and fix that issue. So what Sandbox enables us to do is really have that one-to-one copy. So when we're in a Sandbox account and we are testing something in Sandbox, we know that all of the workflows that currently exist in production are turned on and are firing in the same way. So we can see, if I deploy this and do this, this consumer doesn't go through this workflow and receive something that I don't expect them to, or whatever it might be. We can really test, in essence, absolutely 100%, will this work in production? Yes. And that, to me, is so important when it comes to a testing environment, is having that exact replica. So when we sync, we can choose what we want to sync. So depending on what we're testing, or depending on how much of this sort of stuff we need, you can come in here and select what you want. So the best thing is you can clone your forms over, so you don't have to rebuild things. Same with lists. Emails, you can get built and rebuilt and already published in the Sandbox account. You can build pipelines, all your website modules and templates. The pages themselves won't get rebuilt automatically, but all the modules and stuff will. So your development team can then go in and build out new pages, structures with those. And also all your workflows, which is, to me, the most important thing, because automation is always the potential fail point. It's because it's stuff that you don't always have visibility on. So being able to test all of your new integrations or new features or new launches against how they'll work in workflows is really important. So all we do is we click Start Sync, and we can actually sync our all of our information down to our Peaches Cool Sandbox. And then it's as simple as just clicking the Peaches Cool Sandbox, because he is cool. And then you've got your Sandbox account, which sits up here, and you'll see it's literally a replica. I can come in here, I can look at all this stuff. Right now it's still syncing, so it's not necessarily going to be a replica yet. But once it's synced over, everything in here will be literally the same as what we have in our test portal. And we can go in and start playing around in here. So I could build my new custom objects. I could build new workflows in here. I can go in and build new integrations with APIs and test the interactions of those things. And that, to me, is really, really important. Just as well, around some sort of just guidance things. Sandboxes, super admins are the only people that can touch Sandboxes. So it means that as well that it's really important that we sort of restrict access to Sandboxes, because you don't want people sort of syncing things down all the time, because every time you sync, it can override your Sandbox setups and stuff like that. So it is restricted to super admins. So we get that level of sort of control. And then also you have this activity log where you can see who the person is that completed a sync and what they synced, and you can even view details of all of those syncs that went through. So we can start to have that audit trail of what the team have been doing and how Sandbox has been touched and set up. So if we go back into our Sandbox account and just refresh here quickly, you can see I've got my custom objects. There's my accounts and my milestones I created just before, and all that sort of stuff. So I can come in here, I can go to my accounts, and I should have my pipeline in here that we built. So there we go. You know, easy as that. What was that? A minute to build an exact replica. Something that in the past would have taken, you know, maybe 100 hours to rebuild the whole system in a development account was done in about 2-3 minutes. So really powerful tool, really great for testing new things, new functionality, and all that sort of stuff. So
that's pretty amazing, Peachy. A quick question: once you've played around with it in your Sandbox, can you actually take that live, or is it just a test bed?
So the answer to that is you will be able to. So
Right.
at the moment, I've been working quite closely actually with the team that have been developing Sandboxes, because we use these a lot for a lot of our clients. We've been part of the betas of testing a lot of the functionality out with Sandbox syncs. So the syncing of assets from production down to Sandbox is fully live, and they're adding more things all the time to that. So we can see workflows are included, all that sort of stuff. And I believe in early 2023 sometime, we'll be getting the ability to then sync assets back up to production once they've been built in Sandbox. So that's not far off, is what I would say.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that'd be pretty exciting. Just a quick question back on your custom objects. If someone's got like an e-commerce business, then am I right in saying that you could track your product fulfillment, shipment, all that kind of stuff by setting up a custom object along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. You could easily do something like that if you had like your object for sort of fulfillment or whatever. Have some sort of, whether or not that's another system you have that tracks that can send the data into HubSpot, and you can manage that and then trigger things off at different stages, maybe email communications of like, hey, it's reached a depot, it's then here, it's here, all these sorts of things. That could easily be integrated and built in. For sure. To be honest, custom objects is, if you've got data somewhere in a system, you can move that into HubSpot and set up some sort of integration. And if you have any development teams, API capabilities, or a HubSpot partner like us that can facilitate with those sorts of integrations, then it is quite easy to sort of set that up. There's the full custom objects API that gives you access to all of that, be able to send all that data in.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, Peach. And I suppose anybody watching this, if you're excited about custom objects, then Michael Peach is the guy to talk to. He'll talk to you about custom objects till the cows come home. But no, it's very exciting. And I gather all of that stuff that we've just seen can all be tracked into a nice little report or a dashboard or something.
That's the key, right? Is because, like I said, you're really looking to make sure that you have an oversight of everything. And something that other systems don't always do really well is their reporting metrics, or especially looking at how to report on one element of, say, your accounting or revenue recurring or whatever it might be in billing, and then your marketing and sales functions over here, and being able to pull them all into one system and see that full end-to-end ongoing revenue, for example, or whatever it might be. It just gives you so much more sort of value from the reporting systems that we have in place in HubSpot.
Yeah, I think that's been very much a common theme of everything we've shown so far on the episodes of Under the Hood, is that everything that we show is all trackable and all goes into dashboards. And we live in a world where data is king, right? We want to be able to see what's happening, make decisions, informed decisions based on that live real-time data, not sort of data that's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months old. So it's very important. Peachy, thanks very much for taking us through. That was an exciting, action-packed episode of custom objects and sandboxes all rolled into one. We could have actually done that as two, I think. We could have had a bit of fun, but you did very well covering those off. So I appreciate that. Thank you, mate.
No problems.
Coming up, behavioral event triggers is the next exciting topic. So stay with us when we bring you back another episode of Under the Hood soon.